I really feel like what knocks most of us off the path to creating whatever we say we want is that we keep using external definitions and looking for external validation to take our next best step.
Yes.
And it always comes from within.
Yes.
Above and within. That's it.
Hi, I'm so excited for you to meet my incredible friend, Patrice Washington. She runs a company called Seek Wisdom, and she is all about chasing purpose, not money. And in today's episode, we got to have a real catch up about how her life has transformed in recent years, post-divorce, really evolving her platform from being primarily a personal finance expert in the media to now really diving deeper with people on personal development. She told me some really heartbreaking and yet also beautiful stories from her early days, how she lost everything after building a 7-figure business by the age of 25, and how she rebuilt. It is such a beautiful episode for anyone who is really wanting to create wealth on all possible levels. Enjoy the conversation with Patrice. Welcome to Plenty. I'm your host, Kate Northrup, and together we are going on a journey to help you have an incredible relationship with money, time, and energy, and to have abundance on every possible level. Every week, we're going to dive in with experts and insights to help you unlock a life of plenty. Let's go fill our cups.
Please note that the opinions and perspectives of the guests on the Plenty podcast are not necessarily reflective of the opinions and perspectives of Kate Northrup or anyone who works within the Kate Northrup brand.
Patrice, thanks for coming on my podcast finally.
Don't say finally.
Well, I feel like I've been asking you for a long time, but in reality, I've had the podcast for just barely over a year, so it can't have been for that long.
It seems like you've had it forever.
Well, we did have another one on the same feed starting in 2016. So it's not like I'm new, but this is like we did 4 years, then we took a 4-year break. Mm-hmm. Then I came back with this.
And it's wonderful.
Plenty.
It's beautiful here.
Thanks for coming
I'm
to
happy
my
to
little
be here.
womb studio. Okay. So I saw you do this really great kind of instant deep dive conversation holding your community's toes to the fire recently around the ways in which we outsource our power or give away our power during, big world events.
Namely election season.
Namely election season. And I am blessed to be in a family with people on completely opposite ends of the spectrum, which is very common for many people. And depending on who you talk to, the sky is falling or it's the best time ever. And it's like people are just literally living in different realities that are mitigated and, how do I want to say, swept away by whatever the media narrative is or whatever the world event is. So I'm curious, in this season, we just had a big election in the United States, but just in general, because world events are never going to stop happening.
Right.
What's your wisdom? What's your practice for staying centered and grounded in the truth of the power inside?
For me, it's just to know that my purpose is never postponed because of what's going on in the outside world. I truly believe that we were all born with purpose, on purpose, for purpose. And no matter what's going on, there's something that we still are supposed to contribute to do our part, to keep things, I think, flowing and being a part of the optimistic crew. And I'm just like, vision is not void, no matter what is happening in the world. And it's not to say that I'm not aware, but I think sometimes we can overwhelm ourselves with all of these different ideas, thoughts, opinions, just the noise, and then lose focus, just lose focus on what we are supposed to be doing, what we're supposed to contribute, how we're supposed to take care of ourselves. And I'm just not here for it. I'm just not, people are like, you should be watching the news. No, I shouldn't. Not if it's going to cause me to, I will say there's a story in the Bible It's Nehemiah, and it talks about Nehemiah having a vision to rebuild the wall of Jerusalem. And so while he's rebuilding this wall, he's leading people, he's doing all the things. People keep coming to distract him. They're distracting him with the news of things that are going on inside the wall, outside the wall. They're inviting him to lunch. They're wanting to have friendly conversation, debates. And he says, I am doing a good work and I cannot come down. And that's what I felt during this entire election season, where I also have friends and family that are different sides and, all these things. And there's so many conversations going on. And then I think about the people that I'm called to serve in the community that I'm called to hold space for. And when I look at those people and I look at what I feel genuinely like I'm being led to do, all I keep saying to myself is, Patrice, you are doing a good work. And you cannot come down. You can't come down to argue with people on social media. You can't come down to unfriend every person that you think doesn't have the same opinion. You cannot come down to get consumed with the news and all this doom and gloom. You can't come down. There's still people you're called to serve. So what are you going to do? And how are you going to take care of yourself in this season to make sure if everyone else is falling apart around you, you can be the one, sound voice.
Yeah.
So that's how I looked at it.
I love that. So let's talk about boundaries then, because this is a conversation about boundaries. So there's like tech boundaries, there's boundaries in conversation, there's time boundaries. And I just want to know, what are some of the boundaries that you have in your life and in your work right now that are your tried and trues, that are you would not break down on for any reason?
So first of all, Sherry Salata taught me governing decisions. So I don't even really see things as boundaries anymore. I really see it more as governing decisions. So before we think about a specific scenario or a person or relationship, already knowing that this is who I want to be, or this is how I want to be treated, or this is what I want to experience, so that these things never get compromised because, oh, it's my mom. Oh, it's my friend. Oh, this is someone I've known since high school. Having governing decisions just means this is what it is. So I'll just start with that.
Right.
So the governing decisions, I think I would say that I've had and held, especially in a season like this, is first of all, at Redefining Wealth, we have the 6 pillars of wealth. And so I tend to talk about things and schedule my life by the pillars. And so first and foremost, the 5th pillar for us is about becoming your best self. And so in the 5th pillar, governing decision is just, I don't get to take a break from therapy. I know some people can go in and out. I'm not one of those people. Every time I try, I'm like, you probably should get back in and talk to someone. So making sure that mentally I'm always supported either through therapy and also coaches and that type of thing. Faith pillar, grounding myself through prayer, through meditation, through journaling, just keeping those practices have been really good. And that's not one of those things I'm willing to compromise for people. Like, I had a prayer room in every home I've had for the last 10 years. And it is literally one of those spaces where do not cross this line. You're not actually invited in here. This space is sacred to me. And so what goes on in here, I want you to be able to feel the energy or the essence of what happens in this space, but you need to feel it from the doorway because you can't come in. I just have very specific routines and rituals and practices that I do my best not to compromise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you gave us 2 pillars. What are the other 4?
Oh, other 4, yeah. People pillars, about creating relationships that matter. I would say a big one for me is recognizing that there's always someone watching you who has the power to bless you. But who do they watch you be? How do they watch you show up? And so I would say a big governing decision for me when it comes to the people pillars, kind of a cross between that and work in this season of my life, is not funding frustration. Not dealing with people that frustrate the hell out of me, Kate. I just can't anymore. I've been historically one of those, what do they say? When you're trying to see the best in people, you're always trying to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I do have to give a disclaimer. I just came off a 7-day cruise, you guys, and my brain is mush. I'm only here for Kate. So anyway,
You're doing it perfectly.
My brain is like, you still want to be on the cruise, drinking champagne. Okay. But yeah, giving people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
You know,
Which is a beautiful quality.
It's
in
cute.
you.
Yeah, no,
Right?
I don't think so.
Well,
I think that sometimes you can do that to a fault.
absolutely. I think our
Right.
best qualities are frequently also our worst qualities.
This has definitely been one of my worst, I have to say. When I look back over my life, historically, what I realize is that I've had a history of romanticizing people. And so in this season, I'm definitely, holding the governing decision that I will not romanticize who people are in relationship.
Yeah.
Right? Whether that's a friend or a romantic partner or a parent, a sibling. I literally do not care who it is because it's a governing decision. And so I won't romanticize people anymore and do this like, well, they didn't grow up with a dad and because we weren't raised the way I was. Okay, the best thing about childhood is that it's over. So now we're all adults here and we
Right.
get to choose.
Yeah. After 35, it can't be about your parents anymore. Probably after 20.
You were
But
being kind.
I
I'm
know.
giving you a smooth 27 and a half.
I love that. Yeah. Right about that Saturn return. It's like buck up and be an adult.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we have fit, faith, people.
Yeah, we have space. It's about setting up your life to support you. I would say one of my governing decisions is like, take care of my shit. Like, I just like my space to be what it is. And I think that got even worse having one child my child was very proper as well.
Oh,
So it
wow.
was really
Yeah.
easy.
What a blessing.
What a blessing.
In the space category.
In
I
the
will say,
space-
I'm just like, oh my gosh, if I did not have children, my home would be so much more exquisite. But I just have had to surrender a little bit, but only a little bit because I teach my girls, like, we live in a condo here in Miami. So it's like we don't have endless space to fill in. So we've been really devotional about what we allow in and also being real fast to let things go.
But I will say, I was having a conversation with my daughter, who's 17 now, maybe a month ago or so. And she was like, we've always had very beautiful homes, but I don't feel like it was child friendly.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wow.
She told me that's what she would do differently when she has children. And I said, good for you.
Right.
I
Right.
love that for you.
I love that for you.
And she
Yeah.
said, that when you walked in my house, you just couldn't tell if a child lived there until you went to her room. But I was like, this is my house.
Yeah.
I'm just letting you stay here.
Yeah. Well, but also that's not wrong.
I mean,
Right? Like I
she's-
tell my girls all the time, they're like, well, it's my house too. And I'm like, yeah, but I pay for it.
Yeah.
Right? So like when you have your house, you get to make your own decisions. And right now you live in my house. And also it's your job to contribute to this household because we are a community. And so, yeah, we are. And when you live in a smaller space, like there's not all this flexibility.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And
now we
then-
have two more pillars.
So we have work pillar. It's about living your life's purpose. I would say a governing decision for me has been my mantra, which is chase purpose, not money. Like I have just historically been someone where, of course, we make money, we manage money, we invest money, all those things. But I don't make every decision just based on the money that I can make. I really do really seek to see, like, does this align with who I want to be in the world? Is this something that my daughter would be proud of? Is this something I would, giving advice? Like I can tell you one story back in the day. I was on the Steve Harvey morning show, that on radio for several years. But before I ended up on the TV show, a producer reached out and said, hey, we would love for you to finally also be on the TV show. We've been looking for an opportunity for you. This would be great. And so we have a sponsor. They're going to pay you $15,000 for like a less than 10-minute segment. And I'm like, well, who wouldn't say yes to that? Like, okay. So I go, cool. Is there a script or anything? Yeah, we'll send you the script, but this is a sure thing. They send me the script. I read it and I'm like, I would never say this to a friend. I would never give my daughter this type of advice. I just can't do it. So I sent them an email back and I said, well, I like the beginning, but at the end, can Steve say that? They said, no, they need the financial expert to say that. And I immediately replied, okay, well, I won't be able to do it. And the producer calls me back. She's like, are you kidding me right now? You're turning down $15,000 for less than 10 minutes you're going to come to Chicago. And I'm like, no, I wouldn't say that to my daughter. I just would not give that advice to a woman that I loved. So no, I can't do it. And they thought I was crazy. And I didn't lose any sleep about it.
Yeah.
I knew it was the right thing. I was like, okay, whatever. I didn't spend all these years building up this reputation to allow it to unravel for $15,000, or I wouldn't care what the amount of money is,
100%.
but at that moment. And so some months went by. They went on, they did the segment with someone else. And some months go on and they reach back out maybe 3-4 months later and they're like, hey, we have another opportunity for you to come on the show. And I'm like, okay. And it's a sponsor. And I was like, here we go. All right. And then they send the script and I'm like, they go, you can fill in most of it. They just want you to say this one line, but everything else, you can do what you want. And I'm like, oh, well, wonderful. And that was how I ended up on national television. But I remember leading up to that, the whole conversation from other people around that time constantly being like, you missed your shot.
No such thing.
You missed your shot. That was your break. Like, what if they go with the other person full time? But when I did get on the show, I ended up being their consistent finance expert for the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, because you know what? The truth is magnetic.
Yeah.
And like people increasingly, I think, are being drawn to integrity.
Yeah.
Increasingly.
We're working on it.
I want to affirm that. But I love that choice. And I think it's a bold move. And I know that was like a while ago, right? Like that was a career maker for you.
Yeah.
And I want people to hear that. Like nothing is ever worth sacrificing our integrity for the money. Nothing is ever worth doing for the money if you don't want to do it, if it doesn't feel true to you. That's really powerful. Okay, last pillar.
It's money, just attracting the prosperity you desire.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Do you think that around this conversation around purpose, right? So chase money. Chase money, not purpose.
Chase purpose, not money.
Okay. Chase
Were
purpose.
you on vacation?
Yeah. I mean,
Drinking.
basically.
4 years.
I don't drink, believe it or not. But
You shouldn't.
yeah, no, absolutely not.
You should not.
Okay. So with purpose, like, do you think that people have a purpose like my purpose is to be a painter or my purpose is to be a storyteller like that? Or is your understanding of purpose different than like being so specific?
My understanding is different because I believe purpose evolves. So even with the examples that you gave, those are just job titles.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't believe at all that it's just about the job title because those are just modalities and you can find different ways to exercise the same essence in the world.
Yeah.
And you get to choose based on your education, your experience, the other things that light you up. But here's what I've been saying for years, Kate. First of all, I hate when people say, follow your passion and the money will come. That gets on my absolute nerve because I believe that you can be passionate about something and not proficient in it. And so passion is about what lights you up, what excites you, what energizes you. And that's amazing. But just because you are excited about it, like I'm excited to sing in the shower, you will not pay me to hear me sing. Really? I wouldn't even be a lounge singer on a cruise. I
feel like you would be a good singer, no?
No.
Okay.
Choir voice all the way. I have to blend in with about 80 altos. Yeah. No. Right? So I can be passionate about it, but not necessarily proficient. And so for me, passion is about what excites you. It becomes purpose when it is a blessing to others. So how can you use your gifts, your talents, your skill set to be a blessing to others? I believe that when we truly, quote unquote, find our purpose. And I want to say, I don't think anyone is like purpose is hiding from people. So we're like, oh, I have to find my purpose. It's not hiding. I think it's something we just have to embrace. Yeah. And they're the things that come to us naturally. And when we see how it is a blessing to others, that's usually the thing that fills the void. It feels that it gives you the fulfillment that, wow, I'm doing something that impacts others. To me, that's purpose. When you see how other people can relate to what you offer and contribute to the world.
And do you think that when you fill your life in that way, the money does tend to come?
I do.
Or not? Yeah.
I believe that it can. I believe that we still all have, financial blueprints and money mindsets, and we have money blockers that can prevent it. But I do think we're more apt to get it when we're operating from this place of pure joy and like bliss and like, ooh, I am good. Like I love when I'm teaching and I get off of a call And I go downstairs and I tell my honey, I am the bomb. I just did that.
Yeah.
Those ladies were on fire. Like that was
I've
so
been on your
good.
calls and you are so good.
I
a
love
blessing.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember the one I guested on like many years ago, and I literally closed the Zoom and I was like, my face hurts from smiling so hard. Like the whole time I was like, this feels
It's so good. But I
So
like
good.
I'm so energized when I teach.
you're clearly living
And
your
it
purpose.
doesn't matter what I'm teaching about. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like a part of my purpose is just to bring ahas to people.
Yeah.
I genuinely believe that. It's to help people see their own purpose, see their own light. It's to help women find their own voice. I feel like purpose evolves.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, I did think it was just like, go to school, get a
Right.
good job, and fulfill your purpose here. But my purpose is not to work and die.
Absolutely not.
And you taught me it's not about being a slave to the algorithm. You said that to me.
I don't know that I use those exact words,
You said that.
but really?
yes, because I've been
Really?
saying it ever since. Yes, I think of you.
What I said was, I work for the goddess, not the algorithm, which is probably not words you would say.
No, I'm
Maybe
not
did
talking
I?
about what you say publicly.
Yeah.
I'm talking about what you told me.
All right. Maybe I said that. Maybe I did, but I'm glad that it was useful.
It was.
Right.
It,
No, because
yeah.
that's not, no, it's like a computer. Like that's not, and I mean, obviously, like we're both here in service to the divine, you
Yeah.
know, to God, however each person understands that. I want to go back and ask you, how is it that you became a well-known money expert in the media? Like, I don't actually know that story, and I'm curious.
Let's see. In the media,
Yeah.
it's really not a sexy story.
Or just even in general. It doesn't have to be in the media.
It's not a sexy story at all. So I don't know if you remember my backstory, but I owned a real estate and mortgage brokerage straight out of college, 7-figure business by 25 years old. I literally thought it would go on forever, and it did not.
It was 2008.
Yeah, the recession hit. And actually, when that real estate bubble was bursting, I was on hospital bed rest. So I took a fall down the stairs at 20 weeks pregnant. And when I got to the emergency room, they said, ma'am, this baby's coming any minute now. There's nothing we can do. And I literally thought I lost my daughter at that moment. But I ended up on hospital bed rest for 10 weeks. And while I was at Cedars-Sinai on hospital bed rest, I was watching the news every day, and the banks were closing down left and right. At the time, I had 16 loan officers and real estate agents, and they were calling me freaking out. What are we going to do? The deals are falling apart. And my doctor came in one day and she said, hey, the belt that's around your waist is monitoring the baby. If you don't stop stressing out about whatever you're stressing about, you will leave here 2 years in a row with no baby. Because I did have a son the year before, same hospital, same floor, same doctor, and he passed after 5 hours in my arms. And so that was my entry point into personal finance in general. It was because I owned a real estate and mortgage company, and I was going all over Southern California teaching. See how that evolved? I was teaching back then, lighting people up, giving them aha moments, giving them hope about being able to own their first homes. And I was teaching for years, and that's what.
Wow.
You're crying.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the entry point. So, even in sharing that, you can see how my purpose has evolved.
Yeah.
I thought it was just, I'm a real estate broker. It was never that.
No.
It was never going to just be that. And I think that's where we get stuck. Not allowing ourselves to evolve, not allowing ourselves to pivot. Sometimes the pivot is forced, right?
In this case, clearly
In
it
this
was.
case, it was a forced pivot. But I have pivoted multiple times since then, going from that to losing everything. When I got out of the hospital,
How many weeks was it that she was born?
My daughter was born 10 weeks early. So
Okay.
she was
born
still
at 30 weeks.
She was
so you were
still-
on bed
yeah.
rest for 10 weeks.
I was on bed rest for 10, and she was born 10 weeks early. She spent 3.5 weeks in the NICU. And so when we left, I had almost $400,000 in medical debt, no deals closed, and we were exhausting savings trying to keep everything afloat. So within a year, I went from this 7-figure business to literally scraping up change. Sold everything that we could on Craigslist in a weekend and fled from Southern California to Metairie, Louisiana.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I owned a property there.
Okay.
And thought, okay, well, we'll just finish the rehab on it and we can live in it and rent it out or sell it. And so we had been sending money to a contractor. Kate, we get to Metairie, Louisiana. Okay. My former husband and I and this less than year old baby. And there were squatters in our property. The pictures that they were sending us were not our home. And we had nowhere to go. We ended up moving into this 600 square foot apartment in Metairie. And that's where I had what I call my come to Jesus moment. Have you ever had a come to Jesus moment?
Many.
Ugly cry. Just this is where I ended up on food stamps. I got a EBT card. I went to the welfare office and cried I don't belong here. Yeah. And the lady is like, do you want this card or not? Because we've got a line. I'm like, well, give me the card, but I don't belong here. Yeah. Like every government assistance program I could potentially get, I got there. We were getting eviction notices every single month. And the straw that broke the camel's back, this is what led me to the come to Jesus moment. In the house with the baby and the lights just go off. And I'm like, oh my goodness, because we didn't pay the bills. And I run outside with my baby on my hip and chase down this power man. And literally, I'm like begging with this man to turn the lights back on. And he's like, man, they're going to come back. They'll be back in a day or two. But he took pity on me. I'm like, I don't have the money to get more milk if my daughter's milk spoils. Like, please. And yeah. And so I went back to the house. He turns it on. And my former husband came. He got the baby, took her on a walk. And I just got in the mirror and I'm like, God, why me? Like, I've been a good person. I treat people well. I'm kind. I operate in integrity. Like, why would this be happening to me? And why would you let this happen when I have a baby? Like, I've been doing so well all up until this point. And so why now with another person to be responsible for? Would you allow this, And I'm like in the mirror and I'm talking to God or myself. I don't know. And I was crying and then I was sobbing and then I was just ugly crying, snotting, And then before I knew it, I was on the floor in fetal position with my forehead on the linoleum. And I'm like, you got to do something. You got to tell me something because this can't be it. And I heard what I refer to as that still small voice, that nudge to get my Bible. So I got my Bible and I ended up on a scripture, Proverbs 17:16. And it said, what good is money in the hands of a fool if they have no desire to seek wisdom? That's why my name on Instagram is Seek Wisdom. What good is money in the hands of a fool if they have no desire to seek wisdom? And that was the first time it occurred to me that I had been very smart and, intelligent. I went to the University of Southern California and graduated, on the dean's list and all these things. And I had been confusing information and education with wisdom. Yeah. And knowledge is the information, the education, but wisdom is how do you apply it and when do you apply it? It was the first time it dawned on me. We went through that entire ordeal and no one ever knew. Our friends and family just thought that we politely moved to Louisiana for some opportunity that we probably made up at that time, honestly, out of embarrassment and guilt. And guilt because we were the ones that made it. And then here we are in this position and we have this baby. And it was just a lot of shame and embarrassment. And so I waited until our back was up against the wall to even utter that there was a problem. And I believe a lot of people do that now, right? Like they have a lot of shame around where they are financially. And instead of asking for help and seeking wisdom, how do I actually apply these things that I'm learning because we can read it and still not know what the hell to do with it. 100%. And I think that's what is really dangerous about the time that we live in now because people have so much access to information, they confuse that with wisdom. It's not the same. You still need to be able to know how to apply it, when to apply it, where to apply it. And this is where I think having mentors, having guides, having coaches, having support is still really important. And we can't think, 3 YouTube videos and a
Totally.
meme on Instagram is going to do the trick.
Yeah. How true.
Yeah. So,
And there's also something that happens when things are so hard and so bad. I do think that there's a part of our system that takes over and doesn't allow us to fully know how bad it is, that we would maybe raise the flag and be like, hey, I need help. I think it's some sort of protective mechanism that not all of us have, but it sounds like that may also have been some kind of layer for you. I have no idea, and I'm probably projecting. But
no, you know what? It's interesting that you're saying that, though, because now I've been divorced for a few years now. So I was married for 15 years. And on the other side of divorce, I am recognizing how much my brain just completely locked things away.
Yep.
I'm having new memories that I know it happened, but for some reason, I had not thought about it in 10, 12, 15 years. And now I'm like, what the heck? And I'm like, I think that my brain, my spirit, my soul, something was just trying to protect me and keep me safe. And so it just literally forgot about it.
Yeah. And because we have the resources we have at any given time, and they're emotional resources, energetic resources, financial resources, community resources. And sometimes we don't have capacity to fully be in full awareness of what is going on. And we actually have to use the resources we have for taking care of our kid, paying the bills.
Yeah.
Like just getting through the day,
Continuing
making
to
sure
build a
dinner's on the
career.
table,
Yeah.
right? And then it's such an indicator actually of wellness when we have things resurface from the past, because what it shows is that we have a certain amount of health on board that now our psyche and our internal infrastructure can handle it.
Yeah.
So I think that's like, I just want to celebrate
I do
that
too.
for you, actually.
Thank you. I receive that. I really do receive that, because it's actually led me to pray more consistently. Like, God, show me the things I couldn't handle then that I'm prepared to handle now.
Yeah.
And now, because of how I've moved through and navigated separation, divorce, and I'm co-parenting very well and all those things, I'm not even mad, where I'm not upset. I don't feel hurt. It's a little like, wow. Whoa.
How beautiful.
Right? Yeah. But I think at it surfaced, these different memories, had they surfaced anytime sooner, maybe 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, it might have devastated me. Right now, I'm
100%.
just disheartened,
Yeah.
but not devastated.
Yeah. Two very different things. So in, your several years past now, if somebody's listening who is going through a divorce and in that time, and they have all this paperwork and the financial stuff to deal with, and it's overwhelming, and they're also in heartbreak or anger or who even knows, right? All the things that come with that kind of turmoil. What did you learn during your divorce process that you would care to share about taking really good care of yourself financially that you could pass along to a woman listening?
What did I learn financially?
Or taking care of yourself in any way, but I would love to know the money stuff. Of course, that's relevant.
To be honest, I would say more women, especially in this day and age where we're building these personal brands and platforms, should know about postnuptial agreements. I didn't know.
Okay, tell me, because I don't know.
I
I've
didn't
never heard
know
of that.
about it. And unfortunately, I didn't do one. But it is something I tell women now I would suggest at least looking into, because especially when you got married, I was young, right? And so you're starting with nothing. And the idea is like, we're starting with nothing. We're just going to build this thing together. And the reality is sometimes one builds faster or differently. Sure. And it's something that you should consider, at least going to have a conversation about. I didn't know that postnuptial agreements existed.
So what does that mean?
Once you're married already, you can still create something like a prenup.
Okay, so it's like a post-nup prenup.
It's a post-nup prenup.
It's a prenup after you're already married. Thank you. I understand. I thought it was like some sort of agreement after you get divorced, and I was like, huh.
No, it's,
Okay.
you're already married.
It's so interesting.
I
Okay.
think for women CEOs, I mean, really for anyone.
Sure.
I'm not
Either way.
But most of my clients are women.
Yeah.
So I do think for women, it's just something to consider.
Yeah.
I think it's
interesting. Okay, so that's a good piece of wisdom. What about with the overwhelm? I have a client I was speaking with the other day who is going through a very messy divorce, and she's also dealing with the grief of losing her husband, and she has to move, and she's taking care of her mom. It's like, I'm not losing her husband, losing her father. Also
Yeah.
the grief of losing her husband. So actually,
Yeah.
that was a Freudian slip, but yep, that's what I meant. And it's just like a lot.
It is.
And I don't know what your experience was like, but when there's so much paperwork and maybe in the past there some of that load was done by somebody else, and now you're like, I got to know all the logins, and I got to and I got to do all this on my own, and I got to like really like handle myself.
Yeah.
What wisdom do you have to pass along with the layering of the overwhelm and the grief and the to-dos?
Yeah, I would say to just pace it, like pace yourself, and really focus on the things that are most important in that moment. Like, we talk about focus on what's important, not urgent. And I think that when you're in these spaces, everything seems urgent, but the reality is everything is not actually as urgent as we make it. So pacing yourself for sure, and not avoiding doing the things and then waiting to the deadlines. Like, oh, court's on Tuesday. Now I need to go ahead and do the things. Like, I would say pacing yourself, having support. Something I have to just say for myself that I learned is that fighting for yourself doesn't have to be mean or nasty. So my whole thing when I was getting a divorce, when I decided to separate, was that I wanted to divorce with dignity. I talked about it on my podcast. I wanted to divorce with dignity. I wanted to be free to dream a new dream. And even though I decided to divorce with dignity, I didn't fight because I thought fighting had to be mean, it had to be nasty. But the reality is, what I've learned is clarity is going to be offensive to people who want to be offended. It's always going to be offensive. So I came out of walking on eggshells and tiptoeing around, which for some people who have known me for a while and know my platform, to know me as a speaker and to know that I have a huge voice in media, and then to hear me go, but I didn't have a big voice personally. Yeah. And so I thought that my behavior would shape his behavior. And I learned that my behavior is for me. Your behavior is for you. And I need to lead with what I truly need, want, and desire. And if I'm radically honest, I didn't fight. I wanted to be done quickly, and I was. My divorce took 5 months, despite businesses, properties, all the things. Wow. Someone told me, oh, you'll be in this for 2 years. And I have this thing that I say when people say things to me that I don't want to hear.
What do you say?
I don't receive it.
That's what you say verbally.
That's
or do
what
you
I say verbally.
Do you energetically don't receive it? Both.
Energetically and verbally.
Right. You say, I don't receive that.
I don't receive that. Right. And so my thing was, well, I don't receive that. I don't receive a 3-year divorce. That's wild. Well, I don't.
No.
Yeah. I just want to be a good co-parent and move on with my life. I'm just looking for freedom.
Yeah.
Right. And so I was saying I don't receive it. And so I was like, you know what, God, I want to do it in less than 6 months. Show them. I'm going to do it in 5 months. Literally, he was served on my birthday, March 15th, 2022, and we were divorced by August 9th.
Wow.
It was less than 5 months.
That is rapid.
That was rapid. Yeah. But looking back, I will say, I wouldn't have changed much, but I could have spoken up more even still. And I think sometimes just understanding that while you're in it, you're still not who you're going to become.
Yeah.
Right? Like even in it, thinking that I was doing all the right things. Now looking back, I'm like, no, I should have said, after you're done with something, I should have done this, I should have done that. But ultimately, if I did those things, I wouldn't have been able to move on and find love again. I would have been stuck in that back and forth. Totally. And not creating the example that I wanted to create for my daughter. And today, my daughter gets to see both her parents be happy in their individual lives. We both moved on. We both have wonderful partners, and we're both doing our thing. And ultimately, she gets to see the best of both of us. She never saw us argue or fight because we never did. So she didn't see any. She never saw any of that. But she gets to see, I think, a different
Yes.
like a different version of me. Like I love differently because I love myself more now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what a gift for your daughter because, are your parents divorced, married?
Never married.
Never married. Okay. I come from a divorce background and witnessing both of my parents happy afterwards was a really big gift because I also grew up in a household where there wasn't it wasn't fighting, it wasn't drama, it wasn't, it wasn't but I could feel the difference afterwards, even though it wasn't it was an energetic.
It's
difference.
definitely energetic. I've learned so much about myself. I thought that I was more masculine. Did we have this talk before? I feel like I told you this before.
Tell me now again.
I felt like I was masculine or too masculine, like I wasn't feminine enough. And I would say this, and I remember some of my girlfriends, their husbands would go, "What is she talking about? What is she even talking about?" But that was programming. That was a bit of indoctrination and programming because I show up as a strong leader. Yeah. Like I've always been very focused. I've always been the checklist maker, make the list, check it off. Yeah. Like I've always been a make it happen type of person. And for some reason, there was this idea, this story that I couldn't be both. I couldn't be soft and feminine and, loving and all that. But I've always had all of it.
Of course.
Yeah. It just needed to be inspired.
Yes. Because different relationships bring out, of course, different parts in us.
Yes.
And they suppress different parts in us.
Yes.
So who are you now? Who have you been allowed to become in this new season of your life?
Oh, let's see. I've become radically honest about my needs, wants, and desires. I am very vocal about, there's no more walking on eggshells or is this okay to say, or should I do that? None of that. I feel very confident. I feel very sensual. I feel very sexual. I feel very loving, and lovable. I think more than anything for me in this season, I feel lovable. Wow. And not for what I do, just for who I be, right? I definitely grew up addicted to achievement because I thought in order to be loved, I needed to perform. I needed to perform for my dad. I needed to perform for my mom. I didn't feel confident in my looks. I grew up feeling like the ugly duckling all the time. And so I was too tall, too dark, lips too big, eyes too weird. Everything that people could pick apart, they did. And so I was addicted to the idea of being class president and being this and captain of the basketball team and captain of this and da-da-da. And so I brought that addiction to achievement into relationship as an adult, but into my whole life. I have to perform in order to be loved. Mm-hmm. And I don't have that anymore. I don't feel like that now. I feel like I'm just lovable. Yeah. You don't like me, it's on you.
Right. Totally. Yeah. And you always were that way.
And I always was. Yeah. And it's interesting to hear people say now, people knew me in high school. They're like, "But you were always." I'm like, well, why weren't y'all saying that? Yeah. You weren't vocalizing that. So I didn't feel that at all.
Right.
But yeah, now 43 years old. I have my people pillar is very strong. I have wonderful relationships, personally and professionally. And I don't feel like I have to perform for any of them. I'm just Patrice.
So great. Okay. I'm realizing that, so I have two questions because we did not finish the story how you ended up becoming a money expert.
Yeah.
But then I want to talk about how that has really evolved and where you are now with your platform.
Yeah.
Because I know it's really been different since we met.
Yeah. So how that evolved. So back to the bathroom floor. Mm-hmm. So scripture, Proverbs 17:16.
Seek wisdom.
And it also led me to look up the true definition of wealth for some reason in that moment. And so what I found was that wealth was not just money and material possessions. The original definition was a condition of well-being. And I took that with me from that point forward, right? It's just about being well first and foremost. So weeks before this bathroom floor moment, I'm walking down a street. It's like a shopping plaza in Metairie, Louisiana, and there's a Starbucks. Of course, I have no Starbucks money at all, right? But I'm like, they got water. So I walk in there with my daughter and I see these women at a table and they have their strollers. And it's just, I'm like, what are they doing? Is this a mommy meetup? So one woman comes over and I go, "Are like, what are you guys doing?" She's like, "We're mom bloggers. We're mommy bloggers." And I was like, now mind you, I had a brick and mortar business before then. So I'm like not even into online things. I'm like, what does that mean? What's a blogger? And so this woman gives me like a 10-second definition and I walk away like, that's strange. I still thought it was like, that's, I don't know. Okay. But when I get up the bathroom floor, I'm like, I could blog. I had just learned the term. I was like, well, what about blogging? I could blog. Next day, I start a free blogspot.com. Seek
And
wisdom,
this is
find wealth.
2008, 2009?
This is 2008. This is 2008.
So this is like very early adopter.
And I start this free blog spot and I'm like, well, I'm not going to talk about Reagan, my daughter. I was like, that's weird. I was literally judging, no shade to the mom bloggers. This is just who I was in 2008. I was just like, I don't know. But I was really into reading Proverbs every day. And so I felt like there was always a money or business lesson you can take from a proverb. So I was like, I'll blog about that because I like money. I like talking about money. That's been my background, personal finance. And it was like the angel on one shoulder was like, yeah, you could do it. And the devil on the other shoulder was like, who do you think you are? You just had your lights turned off. Do you want to talk about money and business principles? And I'm so grateful that still small voice said, you lost all your money, but your mind isn't bad. You still know what you know. And if you did it before, you'll do it again. So here we are. We're going to blog. And I was like looking for jobs on LinkedIn and nothing ever worked. Nothing ever happened. I never got a call back, never got a job at all. And I started the blog and every week I would blog. I would send it out to, this is how green I was. I didn't even know about BCC. I didn't know you can blind copy. So I was spamming people. I was just like, everyone in my email is going to get this notice about my blog. And after like 2 or 3 weeks, a friend of mine who was like a professional, you know, she's like, hey, you really can't do that. You're like exposing people's email addresses. I'm like, oh. Yeah. But after a few months,
It's great.
so true.
We don't know what we don't know.
Yeah, I was a mortgage broker. I have no
Somebody's gotta tell us.
reason to, copy 87 people before, but yeah. So I do the blog every week faithfully. I was very consistent. It gave me something to look forward to. And there was one week in particular, I asked my mom and my husband at the time, like, hey, I was really proud of this one. Did you read my blog? And they both were like, no, didn't get to it. And then another week goes by and I'm like, hey, did you read? And they're like, no. And then it started to, I'm used to performing at that time. So now I'm like, they're not liking the performance. I'm not getting applauded for this. Why am I even doing this? I need a real job. I need to find something to do. And I stopped. I had been doing it consistently for quite a few months and I stopped. I'm like, if the two people who are the most important to me aren't listening or reading, why would I keep going? And maybe a month or so had gone by and I got a random email from a man who said, hey, hope you're well, been enjoying your blog, but haven't seen you. And I was like, who is this stranger?
Wow.
What is he, like, who is this? I was so green. I didn't know how to read the analytics, didn't know. I had comments that I was supposed to be approving. No idea. Didn't see any of it. So because he sent me that email, I still consider that man, whoever he is, to be an angel because he taught me that an audience of one is still an audience. And this man that I hope sees me on something one day and makes the connection literally encouraged me to keep going. I was like, my mom and my husband are not my audience. No. I'm going to keep writing for him. But at the time I had no idea, right? So now it's 2009 and writing for that blog turned into me pitching to write for some bigger blogs. So I started writing eventually for Hello Beautiful, Black Enterprise, and then I got picked up to write for some magazines. So Black Enterprise, Upscale Magazine, like Sheen Magazine. And I was defending one of my articles on a radio show. So I got tagged on Twitter and people were like, here she is. And I was like, here I am. Like, what are they talking about? And I start reading and I'm like, oh, they don't like me at all. They were offended by something that I wrote. And I thought, I'm going to go on radio and defend myself, and forgot how radio worked, like that I would not have that much time to make my point.
It's like 30 seconds.
Yeah. And they like ripped me to shreds. And I was like, well, that'll never happen again. I need to practice.
Okay.
That was around 2010 by then. Had no idea that by 2014, I would end up on the Steve Harvey Morning Show, nationally syndicated with a weekly segment.
Amazing.
But in those 4 years, I was writing, I was blogging, I was starting to speak, and then I was going on random like little radio shows in random little towns. But what God was doing was building my voice and building my platform. And I didn't really know it to be a platform. I was just really doing what my first grade teacher, Ms. Boynton, said.
What did she say?
Well, first of all, I was performing very young, right? So first grade, anytime she asked a question, I'm like, I got it. Yeah. And if she wouldn't call on me, I would get upset. And one day she told me, Miss Cunningham, my maiden name, put your hand down. And I was in a big huff. And then she's like, you're staying in for recess. And I'm like, oh, this crazy lady. And she keeps me in for recess. And she said, it's clear you're very smart, but it doesn't mean anything if your friends don't know. Like you should understand that you have a responsibility to help your friends. It's not good enough that you know. And ever since first grade. And she gave me an opportunity after that. Like I could channel all my talks too much into good. I could channel it. I could go around the class, help people with things. And ever since first grade, I've kind of led with this idea of when you know something, you have a responsibility to share with friends. So from the time I started the blog to launching the Redefining Wealth podcast in 2017 to now the Institute for Redefining Wealth and the app and all the things that I've done, it's really this heart of just like, I want to share the things that have been a blessing to me with other people.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
I simultaneously love and find irritating that wisdom from Ms. Boynton or whatever her name was, because what was her name?
Miss Boynton.
Boynton. Okay. And I'll tell you why. Because I too was one of those little girls who knew a lot and was smart and like with it. And I'm just curious what you think about this. I, too, was encouraged to, instead of focusing on myself, like, well, I don't know that anyone ever explicitly said this. I just like sensed in the environment that I was there supposed to help everyone else. But what about like as women, we've been so conditioned to believe it's our job to help everyone else. So like while you and I are 100% put on this planet to like be broadcasters and share and teach, like we're definitely like, I love it being of service. This is where we're meant to be. And also, like, I think there's a little bit of a shadow in that. And I want to hear what you think, like, of this idea that we always need to be like making sure everyone else gets what they need. And like, I kind of want to go back and tell little Patrice, like, you just use your voice. Like, you can just be smart. You don't have to help everyone else.
This is the thing. I feel like I do have a responsibility to share.
Yeah.
I do. I don't have the responsibility of making you accept it.
Okay.
And that's where I think, especially as women, we get caught up is we want to force people to do the things. I'm here to share. It's up to you.
Yeah.
If you're actually going to receive it and do something with it. But back to the boundaries or the governing decisions that we talked about earlier, I'm not here to force anyone to do anything. No. I think it's a blessing to be able to offer wisdom. What you do with it is yours.
Love that. So the way that your platform has evolved, would you still consider yourself an expert in the personal finance world?
No.
Yeah, right.
No.
So like, what would you, like, what's your overarching kind of defining principle at this time with your platform? What are you most called to make sure people know in this time? And how are you doing that? What are the avenues?
Yeah, I would say that it's definitely evolved to be more personal development. I don't believe you can have personal finance success or financial wellness without the personal development. So the Institute for Redefining Wealth is really a hybrid of two tracks that I really believe in: personal transformation and purpose acceleration. And so when people are saying, oh, I want to make more money and I need more money, that does not happen until you do your work, until you heal some things that you need to heal. Now, it can happen, but will it be sustainable? likely not, right? So, and I believe that whenever we're not operating from a place of purpose, it continues to create a void. And that void is the unfulfillment that leads people to financial mismanagement. So in my space, what I seek to do is offer people another lens to get to financial wellness, but it's through their own personal development. And then through making sure that whatever their God-given gifts are, they find a way to utilize it. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone needs to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
At all, like at all. But knowing what you feel called to do and then finding different modalities to express it will hopefully keep your American Express bill down. Like, because you're not out there window shopping or trying to buy friends, buy people, buy all these things, thinking that it's actually going to fulfill. No, that's insatiable, right? When you're literally just trying to use money to throw at all your problems or to throw at relationships. And so I would say that's how we've evolved. But, you know, when Success Magazine named me like one of top 25 in personal development or something, I was like, really?
Did that help you kind of like update your self-identity?
It did. It did. And it was interesting too. I would say different things to clients or, you know, I'm like, can you guys receive more than just the money maven? I was known as America's Money Maven for 10 years. And I'm like, can you receive more than America's Money Maven? I want to talk about, you know, different things that are now the pillars. And people were like, you always talk about that. I'm like, too high. Have I?
Oh, yeah.
But it's always been a very holistic approach for me because I know the things that I've done. That's what my podcast is about. Yeah. It's about the rituals, the routines, the behavioral shifts, the mindset shifts that I've had to undergo to rebuild. And now even after divorce, I'm rebuilding my wealth again, you know? Yes. So to create multiple 7-figure businesses and, you know, then things happen. And now to do this alone, I was married my entire adult life, you know? So it's a journey. But the beautiful thing is I have the tools and we teach now from the authentic alignment tools, right? And so these are 12 tools that just help you stay on track with what you genuinely desire. I really feel like what knocks most of us off the path to creating whatever we say we want is that we keep using external definitions and looking for external validation to take our next best step. Yes. And it always comes from within.
Yes.
Above and within. That's it.
Above and within. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so your practices, I know, you know, you're very committed to your health, working out, prayer, eating well, like obviously, you know, your beautiful space, those things. And that's how you like keep that channel open to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else that you would add?
I would say too, just being aware of the relationships in my life, like that is, I don't think we're all where we are because of the relationships in our lives. You live where you live, you drive what you drive, you do what you do because you probably had a conversation with someone, right? Or had a connection to someone or something. And I think relationships have been, again, there's always someone watching you who has the power to bless you. And keeping solid relationships and staying connected with people, you know, and it being a genuine connection. Because I'm not one to force friendship or force connections or force anything either.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think
icky.
It is icky. And I think what you're speaking about around that, like relational wealth is so important for career, but just for that feeling of well-being, like you said, the original definition of wealth. Amazing. Thank you, Patrice.
Thank you.
It's really like, I appreciate you so much. I love listening to how, I don't know, like, I think there's something like graceful yet also unapologetic about the way you speak and you offer your wisdom. And I can always tell that you're telling the truth. Like you're not, if you're talking, you're telling the truth. And I just really appreciate that about you.
Aww,
so thanks for being here.
Thanks
for being
having me. Finally.
I don't know why it felt like so long. I realized I was like, it's probably less than a year ago. I don't know, but I'm so happy you're here now. It's perfect timing. So if people want to connect, learn more, dive into your stuff, where should they go?
If you want to dive into my stuff, I would invite you to the Redefining Wealth app. So that is my global community of, we call them purpose chasers, but all things that I do, any programs, any events, book clubs, panel discussions that we have are going on in the Redefining Wealth app, totally free.
Great.
And yeah, you can download it on any device. And
That's amazing.
Seek Wisdom PCW on Instagram.
Okay, so great. And we'll put it all in the show notes. And your podcast is called?
Oh, Redefining Wealth. We hit 7 years, 20 million downloads this year.
That's incredible.
I know.
You listen, when you're on a podcast, you have to talk about your podcast because podcast listeners listen to podcasts.
To podcast and Redefining Wealth. Yeah, I remember when I thought, oh, I'll give it a year. I was in radio. And they're like, oh, maybe you should have a show, but you need to do it within 3 weeks. And within 3 weeks, I put together the Redefining Wealth podcast.
7 years ago.
7 years ago, September 2017, and thought I'd give it a year. And here we are, 20 million downloads later,
Incredible.
7 years later, and such a beautiful community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So beautiful. Thank you for being here.
Thank you
This
for
was
having
so
me.
fun.
Thank you.
If you're ready to revolutionize the way you work as an ambitious human, you have to get my book, Do Less, A Revolutionary Approach to Time and Energy Management for Ambitious Women. This book is my love letter to recovering overachievers, and it is an evidence-based journey to shifting the way you relate to time and energy so you can experience better results with less stress, less overwhelm, and avoid burnout. You can go ahead and get your copy over at katenorthrup.com/book.